I very strongly encouraged us in relation to the lost, last and the least, and I encouraged us to actually get back to proclaiming the gospel of Jesus and to work out how we're actually going to talk about Jesus' life, death and resurrection and the difference it makes in our world and our life. And so that was a challenge. That was the encouragement of the charge last year. So I'm just going to put up a question, if it's there. So in your tables, now here's the thing. If you can't make it, fake it. Okay? So talk about how you respond to last year's challenge. Over the last year, how have you gone fronting up to proclaiming the good news of Jesus and re-articulating it for this time in history to your people? Go for it. I'll give you 5 minutes, then I'll carry on. Over the last year, I've really enjoyed this challenge. Over the last year, Sue Fordyce will know, but in the schools we go to, and even in the parishes that I visit, and even other places, I've made it a priority that wherever I go, I make sure I preach the good news of Jesus. And you know what? I love it. By the end, as I come to sort of the end of this year, I'm just loving talking about Jesus more than ever in my life. But as I talk about the difference Jesus makes in our lives, individually and corporately, and as I think about the issues facing us individually and as a nation and as a global community, the more sense Jesus just makes. And so can I encourage us, this challenge to re-engage the lost, last and least, to re-engage with priority of the poor and to proclamation of the gospel. Can I encourage us, look, it's not going to go away. Jesus ain't going to go away, and actually we're just missing out. So can I encourage us to pick up that challenge, I've just got back from the school's pilgrimage, and we'd spent 4 days on the road visiting many sites in our diocese and also jumping across to Taranaki. And I just want to talk briefly around it. It was just such a powerful time. We went to Rangiatia first, and we heard these words of Te Rauparaha. Tōkina tō mēnei kua mutu takururi ki te whenua ka ruri au ki te rangi hoa tu hangahea wharikarikia mā tātou. Come and take possession of this weapon. He had his sword in his hand and he put it into the soil. I no more seek honour on earth. I seek honour in heaven. Go to and build us a church. And that was the start of Rangiatia, And I was deeply impacted again, because as we went around, we heard the stories of these people 100, 150 years ago who, responding somehow to God's initiative, somehow joined the big picture story and weaved their lives in. We went to Ratana and we got welcomed there by Piri. We got shown around the temple there. And then we went over to the whare where they keep most of their sort of pictures and taonga, their treasures. And we went into the whare and it was just so amazing. We went in there and we sat down and he showed us around some of their taonga and he showed us these, he lifted up on this one platform, he lifted up, he said this coin was gifted to the community of Ratana by the Japanese emperor. And this means so much to us. And then next to the coin he says, and this pictorial cross was gifted to us earlier this year by the Wellington Diocese. It was the pictorial cross of Charles Abraham, our first bishop. His son was a bishop in England, and it was his pictorial cross. And at the beginning of this year, we gifted it to Ratana, and there it was at the place of honour in their whare. And I thought, what a privilege for us at this point in history to weave our stories together. To weave our story with those people. And then we went to Parihaka and like I've been to Parihaka for many, many years now and I've told the story so many places and I've made it kind of one of my things in life is to constantly retell the story of Parihaka. But it was particularly special to go this year because I don't know if you've been following the news, but that the Crown has finally decided to apologise and to put it right. And after all these years of going there and all these years of telling the story different places, to finally go there with a group of young people who in the next year or two, they will be present to the signing and the apology and the restitution of that community. And again, I think what a privilege to weave our lives together in this story. And when I think of the Octavius Hatfields and the Te Whiti Rongamais and Tohu Kakahis and the Tahu Portuki Wiramu Ratanas, and I think of these greats who weaved their lives into the fabric of this nation, weaved it in with what the Spirit was doing. And then it comes down to our generation and our time in history. And still God is weaving. The challenge is we just don't have any Octavius Hatfields anymore, and we don't have any Ratanas. All we've got is you and me. But you know what? I don't actually probably think that the Octavius Hatfields and the Ratanas and the Te Whiti Rongamai, I probably think actually that they were just like you and me. They were just ordinary people who were caught up in the most extraordinary God, who weaved their lives into something memorable and something that leaves a legacy. And so I don't have huge confidence in our lives, but I do have huge confidence in the God who works through history constantly with ordinary people like us. And so my first challenge to us is this, is to regain our confidence in the power of God to transform our nation, to transform our lives. To again, let's weave our stories in. Let's weave our stories into the story of this nation so that in 50 years' time, other people gather and they tell the stories of our lives, of our faithfulness at our points in history. A lot of people have said to me, we really understand what you say when you talk about moving from being institution to movement. We understand the need to do that. We understand that we do not want to be an institution. We do want to be a movement. But can you help us get an idea of what that actually looks like? We understand what you're kind of wanting to, what you're saying, the gist of it. We get the vibe. But can you actually help us flesh out what you're really meaning by a movement? So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what it means to be a movement. Now, I've got this cool bit of technology. Somebody's given me one of these pads, but I don't know how to start it up. Anybody want to help me? Technical person? Sorry, I've got a pad that I'm going to write on this pad, and it's going to go on the screen, and that is going to be absolutely cool. There's a password. I won't tell you what it is, but it's got a D in it, and it's got some numbers. Okay, here we go. Look at this. Check this out. This is cool. See that? That is technology, people. Okay. So this is what I see, and this is what I work to, and this is kind of what's always in the back of my mind in relation to us being a movement, not an institution. Okay? If you think of this as the dio, okay, you can see how bad my writing is now. Okay, the dio is made up of many, many ministry units, parishes, schools, chaplaincies, etc. And this is how I see us holding together as a movement. This is what I work towards. This is what's always in the back of my mind of how us as a movement. But somehow we have to hold together. And historically what we've held together is primarily, on a bad day, we hold together institutionally, which means we meet and we pass a whole lot of legislations and that hold us together. Just on that, how many of us in the last 5 years have read through all the canons and statutes? Hands up. Okay, so that's what holds us together, the 7 people who know them. Okay? Okay, so, however, how a movement holds together primarily relationally. And let me just put, that's a really bad mitre. Okay, that's a really bad mitre, okay? So here's my dream of how we're called to be. that in each of these communities we gather around the table, and as we gather around the table, what happens is we strengthen each other. Our lives are transformed by God's Holy Spirit. We equip each other, we encourage each other, and we send each other out to be that transforming work within the world. I love Tony, our Chancellor, gave a couple of talks earlier this year where he defined Anglicans as we're the people who do stuff. People who do stuff. Okay, I like that. What it basically means is that we are people who make a difference, that we're a transformative people. And in all these different communities, in all these different locations, we are transforming. We are working with God's Spirit, and we come back to the table regularly to be strengthened, to be transformed ourselves, to be equipped, to be consoled, to be encouraged. But what happens is this, is over these tables what we do is we have ordained people. That's a stole. It's a red stole, but you can't tell. Okay? And what happens is ordained people, what we do is we preside, we facilitate the table in order to see us all transformed and strengthened. And what happens is we have, across all these communities, these transformative communities in every location around the wider, greater bottom quarter of the North Island, and all these communities, we're held together by these covenantal bonds, not just to the bishop as a symbol of unity, but actually to each other. And these are our covenantal bonds. These are first and foremost our baptismal vows, but then our ordination vows. The vows that we're actually going to belong together, that we're going to prefer each other, that we're going to honour each other. And when these bonds are strong and these bonds are honoured, doesn't mean we all agree. It's boring, you know? And actually, why would you want the diversity? But when these bonds are strong, these covenantal bonds, when we can rely on them, what we do is we don't have to legislate for people doing the right thing, because we know, we trust people will do the right thing because they're honourable. You know what I mean? What it just means is we say, I know you're an honourable person, and I know that whatever location you find yourself, whether you're in Eastbourne or Gonville or whatever, you as the ordained person, you as the clergy, you as the leader there, you will do the right thing. And you will do the right thing whether we're looking or not looking. Because you're honourable. And because these bonds are really strong. And if you notice constantly what I do, I'd be surprised if I've ever come to any of your parishes and told you how to do your worship. And I don't think I've ever sent anything out in the last 3 years from the diocese that has informed you of how you must do your worship in your parish. Because my strong belief is you people know best in your area, and I trust you. I trust Peter Brown at Epiphany to do the worship well at Epiphany. And I trust May to do the worship well in Martinborough and in Featherston. And I know those worships will all look different. But I trust that you will do it well. Because you know best. You know best according to the gift set that you have in your location with your people. Now, what I do though say is, you know best, but you don't know everything. And that's where these bonds have to be strong enough so that one to another we can say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Hey, there's a little issue there that I think is maybe a little bit not quite right in your life. Can we talk about that a bit? And so we're held together by these strong covenantal bonds of honour. That we've got each other's backs. That we want to be in the same room together. You're not here because you have to sign the bit of paper at the entranceway to the room. But here because you've chosen to be here and you want to be here. And you want to be with everybody else in this room. And that's my dream of being a movement and not an institution. Yeah, we do need some regulations. We do need some structures. We need to make sure we don't get sued. But actually, basically, the higher we are honourable and trustworthy, the less we need to legislate it. Because we just know each other's doing their best. And we know that we can speak into each other's lives and we can actually encourage each other and support each other. And we're actually happy to have those difficult conversations, but those conversations are essential to our bonds. So what happens is, I think, see, hit the wrong button there, I know. Is then when we have high trust, which is that we keep growing and keep nurturing, then what happens is the rules go down and the principles go up. So what that means is we don't have to tell each other how to do our parish life exactly. Because what we say is, actually, you need to be empowered by the Holy Spirit. You need to be preaching the good news of Jesus. You need to be reaching the lost, last, and the least. But you know your area. Go to it. That kind of makes sense? And I think that's the difference between a movement and an institution. A movement strengthens its covenantal bonds one to another. And we don't need to legislate to do the right things because we want to do the right things because we want to honour each other. And it doesn't mean we all will do exactly the same things. That would be really boring. We need the diversity. It doesn't mean we all think the same theologically, but we still all back each other and back that the Spirit of God is working in all of our lives. And it means that we do have to have the ability to have the conversations which are interesting conversations. But what we do is we constantly are building and working on trust. So when we hear somebody say anything, when we hear somebody stand at Synod, do we think, oh, they said this, but what they're really saying is that? Or do we think, they said this, what's the best interpretation I can bring to that? Okay, that's probably what they meant to say. That's how trust and covenantal relationships work. Otherwise, what we do, we undermine the very mechanisms of our communication. Every communication that comes out can always be interpreted in a light of distrust. And so you have to send out a second communication to clarify the first one. But then people think, oh no, they're being heavy-handed. And then we send out a fourth communication to say we're not heavy-handed on the first two. Actually, it's far easier if we just say, I'll believe the best and I'll be honourable. And so that's how I think we move to being a movement. So constantly we're trying to say, what are the principles we believe in? Let's agree on the principles and then let us get on and live our lives together, having the right to speak the truth to one another and to talk with each other and to support each other, but not expect us all to be uniform. And so I think that's what it means for us to be a movement. And that's what always is in my mind. So in my mind, I'm always trying to work away from us legislating and more to us strengthening our bonds one to another. Why? So we can be better at being the people who do stuff and join in what God's doing in this world and actually join in God's transformational work and be the people who do stuff. When you don't have trust, you create bureaucracy. And when you don't have trust, creative conversations end up becoming politics. And people don't kind of want to be part of that. They want to be part of a movement. And so that's why I constantly go on about culture, our relationships one to another. And I'll keep going on about that because in the end, that's what we want to be part of. We actually want to have a great culture. We want to have a truth-telling culture. We want to have a culture of supportive culture. Where you make a mistake, we don't crucify you. We say, hey, we've all made mistakes. Let's help each other pick ourselves up. That's what we want to be part of. And that's what everybody wants to be part of. And so constantly we're working towards that. That's what I'm heading us towards, this idea of healthy culture and honourable relationships. A couple of Saturday nights ago, I was driving back from Wonga, Vegas, and And I just had a great day with the Wanganui cluster. Where are you guys? Where's the Wanganui cluster? So I just had a great day with you fellas. I came back driving down the car feeling so encouraged. I thought it was a really great day of that, actually. It was that. We just had such great, meaningful conversations, difficult conversations, beautiful conversations, honouring conversations. It was beautiful. I'm driving back on Saturday night. I'm about to call in at EFM. We're the EFM crew, EFMers. I was about to call in at your retreat. That was wonderful. And I got a phone call from a mate of mine who was deeply impacted, as we all were, about the refugee issue. And he said to me, look, wouldn't it be great if every church, every parish adopted one family? And I said to him, oh, yeah, no, too difficult. No, you know what? And I just sort of shut him down on the phone, hung up, kept driving. And I was just going through this thing in my brain saying, oh, look, I've just been so busy for 3 months. I am, just on the edge of, kind of over commitment. I just can't take anything else on, etc., etc., etc. And then I was thinking, I can't even be bothered sending the email out, letters out to parishes asking if they'd be interested in responding, because I know I'll get the emails back which will have all the fine print questions. Oh yes, but we need to group refugees together, so one parish per family won't work, because actually we should have it done in clusters, or actually, do we aware that there's other groups in our community doing this, and I thought, I'm about to get all those, and I thought, I can't do this. I thought, no, this one. And then sort of, I was driving down the car, and then, God doesn't often speak to me, but I really felt it was sort of God, and God sort of said, well, look, come on, are you going to front up or what? And I thought, no, I don't want. I'm just too tired. I don't want the stress. But anyway, on that Saturday night, I hit the ball rolling, and we sent that letter that got read in your parishes on that Sunday morning. And within 24 hours, there was that most beautiful response by you. Most beautiful response. Incredibly beautiful response. And it was interesting that the Pope picked up on it. Pope Francis was a little bit late. Sunday afternoon, he called globally for parishes. One parish should take one family, but we'd already sorted it out between us, hadn't we? We'd sorted that one out. And then the Archbishop Philip and Cardinal John Drew obviously went to the media on Monday, again, and they said one parish, one family, and we could say straight away, well, we've already got that sussed. And then we got the opportunity to speak into society, and we had an opinion piece run in the New Zealand Herald, and Jenny Sims and her parish got on TV, and all this sort of stuff. And for me, it was the most beautiful picture of us being a movement. It was a beautiful picture of us being a movement. I mean, who knows the details? We have to sort them out. We do have to sort them out. Don't get me wrong. And Red Cross, we're working with Red Cross to sort them out. But the point is, together we responded with one voice, and we moved together, and the world took note. The world took note. And I was so proud of us. I mean, me and Rebecca in the office, kind of was just so beautiful to read your emails. So-and-so said that they didn't have much money, but they brought in the jar of their savings and coins and put it on the table, And so-and-so offered their old car, and so-and-so said, we've got to sleep out, we can use this. And everybody said, we don't know what we can do, but we want to do everything we can do. It was just so beautiful to be a movement. It was so beautiful to be able to be part of that as we responded to what God was doing amongst us. And this year I'm encouraging us as one of our 3 priorities. Yes, we're going to do child poverty, climate change one, but then as we refocus on family, particularly focus on generous hospitality. And I thought this was such the beautiful picture of us offering generous hospitality. And the way I describe generous hospitality is this, is generous hospitality is when it's hospitality that costs us. Hospitality, when it doesn't cost us, okay, that's lovely. But generous hospitality, when it actually comes out of our fabric of our being, we're actually giving out of what costs us. And I think this is such a beautiful example of us showing generous hospitality. And it gave us a little picture, I think, of what we could be. And again, the details will look different in every place, and we can work with Red Cross in all different ways. But the point is, together we moved with one voice. Together we responded with one heart. Together we said, let's make a difference. Let's be people who do stuff. Let's be people who do stuff. So, here's a challenge going into next year in relation to generous hospitality. Here's a Lenten challenge I want to set before you. Want to chuck, Lenten challenge is this. Why don't we this Lent, and now we've got study booklets coming out on generous hospitality, but my challenge is this. Why don't we take up the Lenten challenge, which is 2 meals a week. 1 meal where you invite people as part of your faith community together. You talk, you share a meal together, you may even do the Lenten study together, but you have 1 meal a week where you just build the bonds of affection one to another. But then, over through Lent, have a second meal each week or a second outing each week where you deliberately invite somebody who would never normally get invited to your table. The neighbour you've never met. The people down the road who play their music too loud. The people you keep avoiding. If I suddenly get invited a lot, I'll be a bit embarrassed at that one. But that we invite in a non-patronising way, in an honouring way. We invite people to our table who don't normally get invited. Like Jesus said, Jesus said, when you're for a party, don't invite people who always get invited, invite somebody else. So here's the Lenten challenge, 2 meals a week. In your parishes, 2 meals a week. You can do them together, you can do them separately, whatever. You can do them with coffee, you can do breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. It's the principle, people. You can go to a movie instead. It's the principle, okay? The principle is 2 intentional gatherings a week. 1 where you would strengthen the bonds of affection across the body of believers, and the second where you go to the highways and the byways and you invite people to your table who will never normally be there. And imagine this. Imagine if across our diocese, in our 60 parish units, and probably, let's just say we have 1,000 people across them. Imagine that. Imagine 1,000 people inviting 1,000 people every week who don't normally get invited for dinner over the 40 days of Lent. Imagine what that could mean. And it's doable, eh? It's doable. So that's the Lenten challenge on generous hospitality that I put out to you. The Lenten study booklets reaffirm that challenge, and we'll kind of encourage it. And again, but can I encourage you also? Let's not do it in a patronising way. Don't invite someone over for dinner and say, "You're here because you're the person the bishop says needs to be here." Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay. I don't think there's a slide that has a Lenten study. Can you put a hospitality slide? Sorry, I've really gone off the slides badly here. No, keep going. Go. Keep going. Forward. There you go. So that's the advertised Lenten studies, but also the challenge for generous hospitality. And now we're going to go to the final slide. Okay, time for you guys to discuss the bishop's charge. Bishop's charge has primarily been in 3 parts. The first part was the big picture weave, having confidence in God. The second part was what it means to be a movement. And the third part was about generous hospitality. The us, you can interpret individually, faith community or diocese. In your groups, break into 3s and 4s. Choose to answer 1 question. Choose to answer all 3 questions. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to discuss this, okay? All right, go to it, team. All right, let me offer a couple of closing comments just to finish off. These are a couple of things that probably just want to clarify just so I help with communication as much as I can. First thing is this. I think the covenantal bonds is not just between clergy and bishop and clergy of each other. The covenantal bonds is about all of us. It's all of us. I was using that as an example because it's clear in our sort of ordinals, etc. But actually it's about all of us. It's about all of our relationships to each other. And that's where, again, when we have a parish context where we don't have ordained ministry, whatever, the approved parish chaplain always has a covenantal relationship too. We clearly put that in a document as a covenantal relationship for that reason, because actually it's about all of our lives. the clergy are just the symbolic nature of all of our covenantal relationships. It's not that they do it for us all, it's just the symbolic nature of all of our covenantal relationships. It's the symbol you look at. If you want to see how to play together, look at how the clergy play together, because that's a symbol of how all of us play together. That's what it should be. Okay? Second thing is this, is in order to build trust, we need to constantly be making sure in our own personal lives that we are becoming more and more trustworthy. And for me, what that means is, my understanding is, for us, people in this room and right across the diocese, is that each day we are spending time with Jesus, we're spending time attending to who we are so that I can offer the best I am to you. And that's my understanding of our relationship, is that you are becoming more trustworthy. You are spending time daily in intimacy with Jesus and spending time daily attending to your stuff, so you bring the best of you always to our covenantal relationship. It doesn't just happen. We all work at being those people. Kapai, good? All right, we're moving on. Okay, thank you for that. Let me pray. Loving God, I thank you for the privilege of being involved at this time in history in this place. Lord, we pray that you will help us to weave our lives into your ultimate kingdom work in this land and in this globe. We pray, Lord, that you will help us to strengthen those bonds amongst us. And Lord, we pray that people will know us for our generous hospitality. We ask this in your name. Amen.